Defying the odds. The artificial sunlight of the medical facility's second-day cycle found Chief Medical Officer ZYX, for 27 still at their post, all 6 optical sensors showing signs of fatigue. The human patient, Lieutenant Harrison, continued to defy every medical prediction their advanced systems generated. "Chief, you need to see this." Dr. Ren 8's gelatinous form quivered with barely contained excitement as they manipulated the holographic displays. "The bone regeneration, it's unprecedented." ZYX moved to examine the three-dimensional scan floating before them. Fractures that should have taken months to heal were knitting themselves back together at visible speeds. The human skeletal structure was not just healing, it was reinforcing itself, becoming stronger at the break points. "The Council has sent 3 more demands for termination of treatment," Venna reported, her crystalline form dulled with worry. "They're threatening to dispatch an enforcement team." "Let them come," ZYX responded, their secondary respiratory system humming with determination. "By the time they arrive, we'll have enough evidence to prove we're witnessing something revolutionary." A sudden alert drew their attention back to the patient. Harrison's brainwave patterns had shifted again, showing signs of consciousness far earlier than any reasonable medical timeline would suggest possible. The stasis field sparkled with increased activity, adjusting to contain the surge of biological energy. "Their cellular regeneration rate has doubled in the last hour," Dr. Ren 8 observed, extending multiple pseudopods to manipulate different data streams simultaneously. "The plasma burns are already showing third-stage healing. This process should take weeks, not hours." The medical bay's AI chimed in with its own analysis, warning, "Patient's metabolic rate exceeds all known parameters. Implementing emergency protocols." "Belay that," ZYX commanded. "Continue standard monitoring but disable automatic intervention protocols. We need to let this play out naturally." Security Chief Krall entered the observation room, their armored exoskeleton gleaming under the medical bay's lights. "The Council's enforcement team has just entered our star system. We have approximately 6 hours before they dock." ZYX's primary heart rate increased, but their voice remained steady. "Then we have 6 hours to document everything. Venna, begin preparing a complete data package for the Medical Ethics Board. Ren 8, I want detailed analysis of every cellular adaptation we've observed." A soft groan from the patient chamber froze everyone in place. Lieutenant Harrison's fingers had moved, just slightly, but deliberately. The neural monitors exploded with activity. "Impossible," Venna whispered, her crystalline structure flickering with disbelief. "No species recovers consciousness this quickly after such severe trauma. Humans, it seems," ZYX observed, "have little regard for what we consider impossible." The next few hours became a blur of activity. The medical team worked frantically to document every aspect of Harrison's recovery while Security Chief Krall prepared contingency plans for the enforcement team's arrival. Through it all, the human's vital signs continued to strengthen, each moment bringing new surprises. "Chief," Ren 8 called out, their form rippling with excitement, "I've isolated something remarkable in their blood chemistry. The human stress response isn't just fighting the damage, it's using it. Their body is literally learning from the trauma, adapting its healing processes in real time." ZYX absorbed this information while watching Harrison's hands flex and relax. "Are you suggesting their injuries are making them stronger?" "In certain ways, yes. The reinforced bone structure, the enhanced neural pathways, this human isn't just healing, they're evolving." The facility's warning system suddenly blared to life. The enforcement team had arrived early, their ship already requesting emergency docking clearance. "They're claiming authority to shut down all medical operations," Krall reported grimly. "We have maybe 20 minutes before they breach the quarantine." ZYX looked at their patient, then at their team. In 3 centuries of medical practice, they had never faced a decision like this. The Council's authority was absolute, their word literally law in matters of galactic medicine. But the being lying in that stasis field represented something beyond law, something that could change their understanding of life itself. Seal all doors, they ordered. Lock down every scrap of data we've collected. And get me a direct link to the head of the Medical Ethics Board. If we're going to defy the Council, we're going to do it by the book. As if in response to the rising tension, Lieutenant Harrison's vital signs surged again. His eyes began to move beneath their lids, and the neural monitors showed patterns consistent with emerging consciousness. "Chief," Venna called out, her voice carrying an odd mix of fear and wonder, I think they're waking up." ZYX moved closer to the observation window, watching as their impossible patient prepared to defy one more medical certainty. Behind them, they could hear the enforcement team's ship beginning its docking sequence. The race was on, and the next few moments would either revolutionize galactic medicine or end all their careers. Somehow, ZYX suspected their human patient wouldn't let them down. After all, defying the impossible seemed to be a human specialty. The impossible patient. Chief Medical Officer ZYX, for 27 had never seen anything like it in their 3 centuries of practice. Through the quantum glass observation chamber, they watched the unconscious form of Lieutenant James Harrison, the first human patient ever admitted to the Central Galactic Medical Institute. All 6 of their optical sensors were fixed on the readings that shouldn't have been possible. "Statistical anomaly?" asked junior physician Venna, her crystalline form shifting colors with concern. "Run the diagnostics again," ZYX ordered, their secondary breathing apparatus whirring with stress. The human's vital signs defied everything they knew about trauma care. By all accounts, the patient should have been dead hours ago. The accident had been catastrophic, a warp core breach during a routine diplomatic mission. Harrison had been found in the wreckage of his ship, exposed to levels of radiation that would have liquefied the organs of any known species. Multiple fractures, severe internal bleeding, third-degree plasma burns across 80% of the body, the list of injuries scrolled endlessly on the holoscreen. "Chief," Venna's voice crackled with urgency, "the cellular regeneration rates, they're increasing again." ZYX moved closer to the display, their exoskeletal plates clicking against the sterilized floor. The numbers couldn't be right. The human cells were reproducing at rates that should have caused immediate systematic failure. Instead, they were watching wounds close in real time. "Bring me everything we have on human physiology," ZYX commanded. "And get me a direct link to the Galactic Medical Council. They need to see this." The medical bay hummed with activity as robotic assistants darted between stations, adjusting the specialized stasis field containing their mysterious patient. The traditional healing protocols they'd initiated were being rendered obsolete by the human's biology with each passing moment. Dr. Ren 8, the facility's leading xenobiologist, glided into the observation room, their gelatinous form rippling with excitement. "The preliminary analysis of their blood samples, it's extraordinary. Their immune response, it's like nothing we've ever encountered." ZYX examined the data streaming across their neural interface. The human's white blood cells weren't just fighting infection, they were evolving, adapting in real time to combat the trauma. The cellular walls were reinforcing themselves, creating new patterns of defense that their most advanced AI couldn't predict. "There's more," Ren 8 continued, extending a pseudopod toward the main display. "Their pain response system isn't shutting down as we expected. It's redirecting the neural pathways. The human brain is literally rewiring itself to maintain consciousness." A sudden spike in neural activity caught everyone's attention. The patient's brainwaves surged, patterns cascading across the monitors in impossible formations. Traditional medical science said this level of activity should have caused immediate neural collapse. Instead, it seemed to be accelerating the healing process. "The Council is responding," Venna announced, her crystalline structure now pulsing with a mix of blue and green frequencies. They're ordering us to terminate the treatment. They're claiming our readings must be fabricated." ZYX's primary heart clenched. In 300 years, they'd never disobeyed a council directive. But as they watched the human's body systematically defy every known law of medical science, they knew this was bigger than protocol. "Seal the medical bay," they ordered, their voice resonating with authority. "No one enters or leaves without my direct authorization. As of this moment, we're conducting a Level 1 observation of a new species' healing capabilities." "But the Council," Venna started. "Will thank us when we unlock the secrets of human cellular regeneration," ZYX finished. "This could revolutionize trauma care across the galaxy." As if in response to their words, Lieutenant Harrison's vital signs surged again. The stasis field crackled with energy as it adjusted to contain the unprecedented levels of biological activity. In the midst of it all, the human's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. "Document everything," ZYX commanded. "Every cellular change, every neural spike, every deviation from known medical parameters. We're not just treating a patient anymore. We're witnessing the evolution of medical science." The medical team worked through the night cycle, watching in amazement as their human patient rewrote everything they thought they knew about the limits of biological healing. None of them knew it yet, but this was just the beginning of a discovery that would change galactic medicine forever. As the facility's artificial sun began its slow rise, simulating dawn, ZYX made a final entry in their medical log, Day 1 of human patient observation. All previous assumptions about species' healing capabilities may be incorrect. We stand on the brink of a medical revolution, all because of one impossible human who refuses to die. Breaking protocol. The enforcement team's heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors of the Central Galactic Medical Institute, but inside the quarantined medical bay, all attention was focused on Lieutenant Harrison. The human's eyes had begun to flutter, his fingers now moving with clear purpose. Neural activity at 90% of baseline consciousness, Venna reported, her crystalline form pulsing with rapid color changes. Tissue regeneration continuing at, wait, these readings can't be right. Dr. Ren 8 glided to her station, their gelatinous form rippling with excitement. They are right. The human's healing rate is still accelerating. Look at the cellular division patterns, they're organized, purposeful. It's as if their entire body is working in perfect synchronization. A thunderous pounding at the sealed doors interrupted their observations. By order of the Galactic Medical Council, you will terminate all treatment protocols immediately. The enforcement team's translator rendered their demands in multiple languages. Chief Medical Officer ZYX for 27 stood their ground, all 6 optical sensors fixed on their patient. Security Chief Crow, status of our transmission to the Ethics Board. Sending now, Crow replied, their armored exoskeleton humming with tension. But the enforcement team is attempting to override our communications. Another series of impacts rattled the doors. The enforcement team had brought quantum phase breaching equipment, they'd be through within minutes. They're going to shut us down, Venna whispered, her crystalline structure dulling with despair. No, ZYX stated firmly, they're going to witness history. They activated the facility's internal broadcast system. Attention enforcement team, you are about to interfere with a Level 1 xenobiological breakthrough. Any interruption of current medical procedures violates Section 7.3 of the Galactic Medical Ethics Code. The pounding paused briefly, then resumed with greater intensity. Your facility is in direct violation of Council orders. This is your final warning. A sudden spike in the medical readings drew everyone's attention back to Harrison. The human's eyes had opened, clear, alert, and unmistakably aware. The stasis field rippled as he moved, pushing himself to a sitting position with strength that should have been impossible given his injuries. By all known medical science, Dr. Ren 8 observed in awe, he shouldn't even be alive, let alone conscious. The enforcement team finally breached the outer doors, their heavy mechanized suits filling the corridor. But before they could enter the medical bay itself, Lieutenant Harrison did something even more impossible, he spoke. Looks like I'm causing quite a stir, he said, his voice rough but clear. The universal translators took a moment to process his words, sending ripples of shock through both the medical team and the enforcement squad. ZYX approached the observation window, their professional composure warring with overwhelming scientific curiosity. "Lieutenant Harrison, you've suffered severe trauma. You shouldn't be conscious, let alone speaking." Harrison managed a weak smile. "Yeah, we humans hear that a lot. You shouldn't be able to survive that. That's impossible. We tend to take those as suggestions rather than rules." The enforcement team's leader, a towering figure in ceremonial medical armor, stepped forward. "This proves nothing. One anomalous case doesn't justify defying council orders." "Actually," Dr. Ren 8 interjected, their form rippling with excitement as they projected their findings, "this proves everything. Look at these cellular adaptation patterns. The human immune response isn't just fighting damage, it's learning, evolving. Their bodies don't just heal, they come back stronger." Harrison nodded, slowly rotating his shoulders. "Adaptation is kind of our thing. Earth's got a pretty harsh history, we either learned to bounce back stronger, or we didn't make it." The enforcement team's leader moved closer to the displays, their rigid posture showing the first signs of uncertainty. "These readings, they're unlike anything in our medical database." "Exactly," ZYX pressed their advantage. "We're not dealing with a medical anomaly. We're witnessing an entirely new paradigm of biological resilience. One that could revolutionize trauma care across the galaxy." A new voice cut through the tension, the head of the Medical Ethics Board, their holographic form materializing in the center of the room. "I've seen enough. The treatment continues, under full observation. Chief Medical Officer ZYX, for 27, you and your team will prepare a complete report for the Council." The enforcement team's leader began to protest, but the Ethics Board head cut them off. "The Council exists to advance medical science, not suppress it. And it appears we have much to learn from our human friends." Harrison let out a small chuckle that turned into a cough. "Happy to help. Though I've got to admit, I didn't expect to become a medical breakthrough by getting myself blown up." As the enforcement team reluctantly withdrew and the medical staff rushed to document every aspect of Harrison's unprecedented recovery, ZYX found themselves reconsidering everything they thought they knew about biological resilience. The human hadn't just survived, he had thrived in conditions that should have been fatal. "Lieutenant," they asked, their scientific curiosity overwhelming their professional distance, "how did you do it? How did you hold on?" Harrison's expression turned thoughtful. "You know, where I come from, there's an old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Turns out that might be more than just a saying for us." The medical bay hummed with renewed activity as the team worked to understand the full implications of their discovery. But one thing was already clear, human biology had just rewritten the rules of galactic medicine. The human factor. The news spread through the Central Galactic Medical Institute like a quantum wave, impossible to contain and equally impossible to ignore. Lieutenant Harrison's recovery had become the most studied medical case in recent galactic history, with specialists from 17 different star systems requesting access to the data. "Your adrenaline response is particularly fascinating," Dr. Ren 8 noted, their gelatinous form shifting through shades of academic excitement as they reviewed the latest test results. "When faced with severe trauma, your body doesn't just fight to survive, it prepares for future threats." Harrison sat on the edge of his medical pod, now fully conscious and remarkably alert. The plasma burns that should have left permanent scarring were already fading to pink, healthy tissue. "We call it, getting back on the horse," he explained. "The harder you fall, the more important it is to get back up." Chief Medical Officer ZYX for 27 found themselves increasingly intrigued by these human idioms. "Your species seems to have developed an entire philosophy around overcoming physical limitations." "Necessity," Harrison shrugged, then winced slightly. "Earth's not exactly a gentle planet. Between the gravity, the weather extremes, the predators, we either adapted or died. Most times, we chose to adapt. The medical bay had been transformed into a research center, with holographic displays showing cascading data from Harrison's ongoing recovery. Specialists from across the galaxy observed remotely, their theories and questions filling dedicated communication channels. "There's something else," Venna interjected, her crystalline form gleaming with newfound confidence after the confrontation with the enforcement team. "The psychological component. Your brain activity during healing shows patterns we've never seen before." Harrison smiled. "Human stubbornness. Sometimes we survive just to prove people wrong." Security Chief Crow, who had remained to coordinate the influx of medical observers, stepped forward. "You mean to say your emotional state influences your physical recovery?" "More than influences," Dr. Ren 8 expanded, bringing up a new set of neural scans. "Look at these patterns. The human brain doesn't just process trauma, it actively fights against it. Their determination literally changes their body's response to injury." The head of the Medical Ethics Board, still monitoring through holographic presence, spoke up. "This could explain countless historical anomalies in human medical records. They're documented cases of survival against impossible odds. Were never anomalies at all," ZYX finished. "They were demonstrations of an evolutionary adaptation we never understood until now." Harrison stood up, stretching carefully. His movements were still stiff but showed remarkable coordination for someone who should have been in critical condition. "You know what's funny? Back home, we're not considered particularly tough. We've got legends about beings who could heal from anything, creatures that couldn't be killed. Maybe those stories came from somewhere deep in our genetic memory." A sudden alert drew everyone's attention to the main medical display. The latest scan results had revealed something new. Harrison's bone density had increased by 17% compared to his pre-injury baseline. "Remarkable," Dr. Ren 8 exclaimed, their form rippling with excitement. "Your body isn't just healing the trauma, it's using the experience to strengthen itself. The very act of recovery is making you more resilient. The implications for regenerative medicine are staggering," the ethics board head noted. "If we could understand this process, adapt it for other species." With respect, Harrison interrupted, "You might be missing the point. It's not just about the physical process. It's about the will behind it." ZYX moved closer, their optical sensors focusing intently. "Explain." "Humans don't heal because we can. We heal because we refuse not to. Every cell in our bodies knows one thing: surrender is not an option." The medical bay fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. It wasn't just about cellular regeneration or accelerated healing. They were witnessing the physical manifestation of something far more profound, the unquantifiable human spirit. "Perhaps," ZYX said slowly, "we've been approaching galactic medicine from the wrong direction. We've focused on the mechanics of healing, but ignored the power of determination." Harrison nodded. "There's an old Earth saying, the mind leads, the body follows. Maybe that's the real breakthrough here." As the medical teams continued their observations and the galactic medical community buzzed with theories, one thing became increasingly clear: they weren't just studying human biology. They were learning about the incredible power of a species that had turned survival itself into an art form. The implications would reshape medical science across the galaxy, but for now, they had more immediate concerns. Harrison was already asking when he could return to duty, displaying yet another peculiarly human trait, the inability to stay still even while making medical history. A new chapter in galactic medicine. One standard galactic month after Lieutenant Harrison's unprecedented recovery, the Central Galactic Medical Institute had transformed. The once sterile halls now buzzed with a new energy as medical professionals from across the galaxy gathered to study what had become known as the Harrison Protocol. Chief Medical Officer ZYX, for 27 stood before the assembled Galactic Medical Council, their presentation displaying the final results of their groundbreaking study. "What we witnessed wasn't just a miraculous recovery," they explained. It was a window into an entirely new understanding of biological resilience. The council chamber, a vast amphitheater filled with representatives from thousands of worlds, hung on every word. Even the most skeptical members, including those who had originally ordered the treatment's termination, leaned forward in their gravity-adjusted seats. The human approach to healing isn't just biological, Dr. Ren 8 added, their gelatinous form now bearing the prestigious markings of a senior research director. It's a perfect synthesis of physical and psychological factors that we're only beginning to understand. On the main display, footage showed Harrison participating in various physical tests, his body performing at levels that exceeded even his pre-injury capabilities. The bone density increases had held steady, and his neural patterns showed enhanced resistance to stress. We've identified 3 key components of what we're calling human resilience factor, Venna explained, her crystalline form now adorned with the symbols of scientific achievement. First, their cellular adaptation rate. Second, their unique stress response system. And third, perhaps most importantly, their psychological framework around recovery. The head of the Medical Ethics Board nodded approvingly. And the applications of these findings? We've already successfully modified our treatment protocols for 17 different species, ZYX reported. By incorporating elements of the human recovery model, we've seen improvement rates increase by an average of 43%. Security Chief Crow, who had become an unexpected advocate for the new protocols, stepped forward. The military applications alone are revolutionary. Recovery times for combat injuries have been reduced by half in preliminary trials. In the medical bay below the council chamber, Harrison was preparing for his final checkup before returning to active duty. He had become something of a celebrity in the medical community, though the attention seemed to amuse him more than anything else. The most significant breakthrough, ZYX continued, wasn't in our technology or techniques. It was in our understanding of healing itself. The human concept of getting stronger through adversity has completely revolutionized our approach to trauma care. The council's chief administrator raised all 4 appendages, signaling for attention. And what of the psychological component? Can it be replicated? Not replicated, Dr. Ren 8 corrected. But it can be learned. We've begun incorporating human motivational techniques into our recovery programs. The results have been remarkable. The presentation shifted to show recovery rates across different species, all trending significantly upward. But more striking were the psychological evaluations. Patients were showing increased determination, better emotional resilience, and stronger recovery outcomes. Lieutenant Harrison didn't just survive, ZYX concluded. He showed us that healing isn't just about repairing damage. It's about emerging stronger, about refusing to accept limitations. This understanding has transformed our entire approach to medical science. The council chamber erupted in discussion, but in the medical bay below, Harrison was having a simpler conversation with a young alien patient, their tentacles still wrapped in healing bandages. The secret, he was saying, it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's what humans do best, we keep moving forward. ZYX watched this interaction through the observation window, their optical sensors detecting the subtle changes in the young patient's vital signs, hope, determination, strength. The very qualities that had made Harrison's recovery possible were now spreading throughout the galaxy, one patient at a time. The final data streamed across the medical displays, confirming what they already knew, this was more than a medical breakthrough. It was the beginning of a new era in galactic medicine, one that recognized the power of will alongside the precision of science. As Harrison finally left the medical facility, now fully cleared for duty, he turned to ZYX one last time. You know what humans say about teaching? Give someone the tools, and they'll build something you never imagined possible. ZYX's primary heart warmed at the thought. Across the galaxy, medical facilities were already implementing the new protocols, combining advanced alien technology with human-inspired recovery techniques. The results were exceeding even their most optimistic projections. The impossible patient had done more than survive, he had helped unlock the secret of human resilience, transforming it from a medical mystery into a gift for all sentient beings. And in doing so, he had written a new chapter in the story of galactic medicine, one that would continue to evolve and grow stronger, just like the species that had inspired it.